This is a classic epic that can't be surpassed in the past 10 years. For the sake of the brutal Egyptian pharaoh, Chen took revenge for his hundreds of thousands of oppressed Zebo's lives. So his first thing for Egypt was that the giant flesh-bottom beasts in the water began to become manic. They surfaced and began to fight wildly. Fishermen born from all visible lakes in the water were first paved the way. Since then, all waters have become puzzled by human beings.
All mountains and rivers of the Egyptian dynasty.
The water source for his survival was also destroyed at the same time. Pharaoh tried to purify the water for them, but he didn't get a response. The third disaster was even more terrifying. Countless frogs at the bottom of the water lost their clean water quality environment, so in order to survive, they climbed out of the river stained with blood and came towards the human land. For a time, all the human territories were invaded by frogs, hoping to find clean water sources for their survival. However, in the end, they failed to find clean water.
The dangerous frog corpses began to rot rapidly, and this kind of flies created a paradise. For a time, the flies on the ground and in the air occupied the living space of the human dam, and the food of humans was also polluted. The black shadow insects covered the sky, and humans had completely lost their ability to fight against them. At this time, they were still in the palace of the pharaoh. They were confident that when all the rotting corpses on land were decomposed by the literary insects, they would naturally die. The warm intentions of the Tathagata followed one after another, and this was the fifth disaster, caused by the god of Shibo. All civilians and members, including the pharaoh, began to suffer physical diseases. Unknown diseases even made Wu Yi helpless, so people could only die in pain in large numbers. The male protagonist Moxie couldn't bear the civilians to be excited, so he sent a white horse to prepare to reach a settlement with the pharaoh. However, the pharaoh pretended to be a god, and she was not the god they believed in. How could he choose him? Therefore, he turned his anger on Sibonuli once again. The Nuli worked hard to build the pyramids again, and the number of people who died began to rise. This made Moxie, who had reached justice, feel extremely sad. His faith also began to waver at this moment. Even though everyone received the help of the gods, the people who died the most were the civilians. He didn't know what this disaster was.
Next, the sixth calamity soon came to an end of adversity, and human beings began to retaliate in succession. The white horse that old Wang had accompanied him for many years also suffered miserably, so he once again tried to rescue him with black clothes. Then the formation of this natural disaster was far from the scope of understanding. Therefore, he tried to get away with it again. After a new round of exorcism and worm decomposition of the corpses in 6 places, everything would return. As a result, he immediately encountered the cruelty of the pharaoh. Sorrow made him want to terminate this deal with West. However, Sibo appeared, and when Moses left angrily, Seben God appeared behind him. But
this meant that no one would be able to stop the 8th year of Shibo's descent of the densely packed locusts to spread the heavens and earth towards humans, and the scene above the imperial city was even more terrifying. The green locusts came straight to the palace, and all the luxury in the palace instantly lost its stain. Then, the 9th episode came. At that time, the people who lost food at that time could still use green seeds and wilds, but at this time, the people even became disappointed with the bark. Therefore on this day, they rushed in. He wanted to grab some food from the pharaoh's team, but it would definitely be a tragic fire. But unfortunately it came out. The whole group of people who got food and came out safely couldn't escape the pharaoh's punishment in the end. A complete team of troops had already surrounded this place, and rows of attackers began to launch the first round of attacks. The intensive key rain rained down like drops, and everyone who came out of it was followed by the knife handrail to launch the final harvest. Only the pharaoh stood in the distance, quietly admiring what was in front of him. Then, the next second, a bolt from the blue fell from the sky. The formation was all instantaneously transformed, for the next thing was the last disaster that she was preparing to launch. Because this disaster was too dark, he was even more resolute than the sum of the previous 9 disasters. However, in order to show his threat, she instantly slipped through the night and shone with thousands of light. A terrifying existence was summoned by him, and this day eventually became the darkest day in Egypt.